the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. If you remember from last time, we indicated that focus of our attention would be on chapter 3, having to do with the fall and its consequences throughout the creation, in the created order. And we talked a little bit about the idea there of the confrontation, or the first temptation, where Satan lays out the temptation to Eve, and so on and so forth, like this. And so when we look at this, I'd like to look at, to begin with, if we could go to verse 5. I'm sorry, not verse 5. We covered that. Let's begin with, for the sake of discussion, let's begin with verse 7. Let's begin with chapter 3, verse 7. It's a good place to begin. Chapter 3, verse 7 of Genesis, please. Is everyone there? No? Is she there? Chapter 3, verse 7.
In the eyes of
I'm trying to see if the lady there is ready. You there? Is the lady there? You there? Okay. Now, it says there, the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. They didn't have this knowledge before. In other words, they were not aware of their sexuality. They were, Adam, before the coming of Eve, could be thought of as androgynous. It is only with the coming of the creation of the woman that the question of sexuality then becomes into play. Now, it's important to remember that when discussing the tree of good and evil by God in the beginning, it's good for eating. All the stuff in the garden, the fruit, the vegetables, all this, it's good for eating. Notice in this particular passage of creation, we are touching on the two primordial, fundamental drives of a human being: food and sex. And they come in that sequential order. Food, because of survival. That is, it's hard to have sex if you're a corpse. Although I understand some try this, but it's looked upon with some degree of difficulty. I don't know that experientially. I want to be clear about that. But that's what I'm told. But anyway. And the idea, I don't know. Again, I just, like one of these networks, I report, you decide, I don't know. Now, and they were naked. It's important, what does it mean to be naked? To be naked means to be vulnerable, to be exposed. It means to be at risk if you're naked. Now, this nakedness, remember, they didn't know this. They didn't know this. This calls into question the notion of human reason and the idea of our ability to know and to have knowledge. That knowledge is good, but it can be corrupted. And that's very important especially in an age and a culture like ours, where there's a great deal of premium placed on knowledge, especially techno-scientific knowledge. And this has long been an issue because knowledge runs the risk of leading to pride and ego inflation. In other words, part of being God is to have all knowledge, to be omniscient, to know everything. See? And the temptation is to be God. God doesn't want this because God doesn't want to share this with you. See, God is jealous and selfish, and so God doesn't want any of this. Well, their eyes are open, and God has said, no, no, no. The reason being is because they are having and will have more knowledge than they can handle. The reason why they are not given the knowledge equal to God is because they are not God. And therefore you are giving them more than they can handle, more than they can properly handle. We used to say it's like trying to shove New Orleans in Algiers. Or your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And you look at this, and what happens, you become overstuffed. And when you do, distress takes place. And so just because you can do something doesn't mean you ought to do something. There's many things that you can do, but you ought not to do it. There's many, many inflictions that you can put on another person. You have the capacity. You have the power to do it. You can hurt another person's reputation. You can inflict a physical or emotional injury on someone. You can do it. But is that what you ought to do? And in an age such as ours, especially, the idea there is that if it can be done, it should be done. That's the danger. And the danger is further acerbated by the rapidity, the rapidness with which science and technology is leaping far ahead of our moral reflection. Example. Simple example. The example of this AI stuff, this artificial intelligence stuff. Oh, my goodness. If you look at the stock market, okay, all of the smart money, and I'm not saying it's not smart money from an investment standpoint, all of that money is pouring in to all of these companies that are starting up and are working on and developing artificial intelligence, because that's where it's going. But there are serious moral and ethical issues related to this already. Now, this is last year. The professors at Stanford University, quite a prestigious, high-powered school. So we're not talking about some kind of low-level school on the U.S. News and World Report ranking of schools. Stanford University. That the professors began to complain that the students in the class were taking a topic right on the effects of the Reformation in England in the 17th century, whatever it is. I'm making that up, but okay. You give that to the machine, computer, whatever the thing is, and there are these programs that will spit out for you an essay. You tell them how many words. You give them a sample of your writing style. You write something down. Doesn't matter what you write. I was born in such and such a day. This is something about. Put it in there. It reads it. Understands your syntax, your vocabulary, the way you express yourself. And within 2 minutes, they have a whole essay printed out for you on how you do it. And there's all kind of programs now that are developed, is my understanding, where you can have this done. programs, whatever they call them. I don't really care. But anyway, the idea being that now, oh, isn't that wonderful? We have artificial intelligence. Well, the very name itself raises questions. I mean, oh, it's the newest thing. It's the best thing. It's the latest thing. But already we found a way how to scam the system. That's what we've done. We found a way how to do it. Already students are now finding a way to spit out something that's not their own work, to get a grade that they don't deserve, etc. And the whole educational process, no one asks those questions. You mean parents are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to send their child to Stanford for this? Yeah, they are. What we still haven't learned since we first fell out the cave is that everything human can be disfigured. There's nothing you can name that has come into existence that someone has not found out a way to pervert it from its real intent, its proper end. Remember the 4 causes we talked about? Review that, and you'll, because if I tell you, I'll just be enabling you're not reviewing it. So I'm not going to tell you, because I don't want to be an enabler. Oh God, heaven forbid that would happen. That's the idea, that this knowledge, sometimes, as the Bible says, it is too wonderful for us. It is too wonderful for us. On a less sophisticated level. There is in our culture today this mania with having children absorb much more than they can possibly process, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and even physically. And yet, let them grow up. Well, they got to learn sometime. Yeah, they do. They do. The problem is, on whose time are they going to learn it? Are they going to learn it on the culture where we are instant grits, microwavable, everything now, fast food, all of that? I mean, we've become phonosapiens. We're not Homo sapiens anymore. We're phonosapiens. We're the animal. We're the animal with the phone. Now, that sounds. Oh God, there he goes. No. I've heard many times people say, "I can't lose this phone. My whole life is on it." Well, don't get a new phone. You need to get a new life. That's what you need. Go to the store that gives you a new life. Because if your whole life is on that phone, and you don't see a problem with that, ooh, Lord, heaven forbid. It's an amazing thing. I've seen people turn their cars around in a panic. I forgot my phone. All right. Thank God I grew up, some of you did, I'm being nice, in an age where you had a black rotary phone. And you didn't have, that's right. And we used to have a party line. A straight line, are you kidding? Forget that. And you had to pick up the phone, and the person was talking, you put it down, and but there was, for the most part, a commonality there. Somebody is waiting to make a call, I'll call you back later, or I have to cut this short. You had that because there was a certain civility at the time. I'm not glamorizing the 50s. What I'm saying is that was my experience of it. That's limited, very limited. But there was that among people. You had that. Now, today, we walk around with them and can't imagine existing without them. And yet, we also know that every phone, I think, I don't know, but I think, has a camera with it. So you never have an unguarded moment that you really can be sure of. So when you do something, there may be somebody snapping that picture to your detriment. Some people are so goofy that they do the most outrageous and crazy things and actually take pictures of themselves doing this and sending them around and advertising this. I mean, the mania of selfies, the selfie stuff or something. I don't know, you hold a thing and you take a picture of yourself or somebody like that and so on and so forth. Now, why would anybody want to do that? I mean, it's amazing to me. Talk about narcissism. I mean, that is so narcissistic. Narcissus fell in love with his image and drowned in the pool. We're drowning. We're drowning in this stuff. And we think this is a great achievement. And we give children cell phones and show them how to do all of this. And they play these games. My Lord. Oh, it's a great advance. Oh, they got to learn that. Oh, yes. Really. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. I understand it's culturally and so on and so forth like that. But we have to be prudent in our knowledge. And the idea, notice please, especially in chapter 2, that there's an interesting difference, isn't there? If you look at, look at chapter 1, verse 27. Look at chapter 1, verse 27, if you would. Genesis, we're in Genesis. Chapter 1, you have a Bible? Oh, okay. 27. God created mankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Notice, please, how different that is than the creation story in chapter 2. He creates them simultaneously. Doesn't he? He created them. Boom, boom. That doesn't happen in chapter 2. In chapter 2, they're created sequentially. Right? Okay. Because why? Because why did God, or this presentation in the second chapter, have them sequentially? Why? What provoked that story, do you think? Because God had nothing else to do. Well, why? Why would God, first chapter, he created them. Why in the second story, creates Adam, man, then he creates woman? Why? What is the intervening factor that triggers this? Come on, folks, read the text. You can do this. Trust me. This is my way of encouragement. Another way would have been much harsher. Trust me. So I'm. No. Before that, what happened? Why? I'm not going to tell you. I want you to think about it. Why, and what intervening cause is at work between the creation of Adam and the creation of Eve? What's that? You're on the right track. What does God say? What does God say? Well, read the text. Do not be alone. Do not be alone. It is the result that God does not give it to him all at once. God has to find out that this social nature requires what? Companionship. You got to have a partner. You have to have somebody. But he didn't get it all at once. It's a gradualism. It's not just plump, plump, that's it. No. It's a gradualism that they come. And it's then when they begin to discover their sexuality. They're different. But the difference is not a difference of competition, it's a difference of complementarity. The man completes what the woman completes in the man what the man cannot complete in himself, and the man completes in the woman what she cannot complete in herself, but together they become what? One flesh. One flesh. And to prove how important that is, what do they do when they become one flesh? And don't tell me they copulate and all that. What must they do? What must they do? Yeah, but what must they do before they do any of that? What does God tell them? What does God tell them? Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. Don't stop. Keep going. Keep going. No. Keep going. Keep going. The two become one flesh, but there's more to it. It says it. Praise God. Yes. That's there. That's there. Yes. If the two become one flesh, to show how important that is, who do they leave? They leave the parent, the place of origin, they leave. To do what? To be fertile and multiply, to keep the cycle going. If they stay there, no. That bond, that primal bond, is superseded by the marital bond. The two become one flesh. They become one flesh, you see. And in that complementarity of man and woman, they are completed. They are completed. In other words, the human being is now whole. The human being is now whole in that. In that differentiation of complementarity, not a differentiation of nature or essence, but of what they give and receive. That is the fundamental difference between love and lust. Lust is very simple. It asks the question, what can I get from you and how can I use you? That's what lust says. And I'm not just talking about let's jump into bed. I'm not talking about that. You can lust after a lot of things. You can lust after a person because they're very intelligent and they can help you pass the CPA test. And so you lust after them, you cultivate them, you get them, and then when you pass the test, you don't know them. You've discarded them. That's lust. Love is how can I be gift to you and you be gift to me. And together, we are whole and complete. But when I get away from gift, it then becomes utilitarian, instrumental, transactional. When you go to the grocery store, your relationship, hopefully, is transactional and instrumental. All I want you to do is take this product, ring it up, tell me what I owe, bag it, and I'm gone. That's it. I don't want to know your life story. I don't want to trade spit with you. I don't want to do any of these things. Okay? I don't want to do any of that stuff. That's all I want. I want a transactional, utilitarian relationship with you. That's what I want. That is but the problem with that is that so much of our transactional utilitarian relationships today are based upon that modus of operandi, that modus of operating. And it spills over into the way in which we deal with others. A police officer who is a veteran and has, let's say, worked in vice or worked with gangs and so on and so forth. has worked with the real criminal element. It's very hard for him to come home and turn that off, or to think everybody's not out with a scam. Not everybody's out to get something. Everybody's a crook. That's very difficult. And policemen will tell you this, that the relationship between husband and wife can be very trying at times, and especially with the children, etc. It's very, very difficult and very, very demanding. And so we get used to these relationships, and somehow we think we're a machine. Push it off, boom, push it on here. Home, boom, off, boom. No. They seep in. And we find ourselves questioning everything. Our neighbor, what are they up to? What are they doing over there? What is it? Why does he want that? I wonder what's going. We begin to interrogate, to use the police example. This happens. This happens. You become what you're around. You become and are used to operating by the element. In today's instrumental rationality, which is not concerned about ends, it's concerned about means on the basis of efficiency. That's what we judge today. That is, our relationship has to be the encounters of the most superficial kind. Brief encounters of the most superficial kind. Talk, get it over with, say what you got to say, even in these phone things. People can't write a sentence. They can't. They write in symbols, they write in all kind of words and code. You are there too. And are we back in the cave? I mean, that's what they did. We are. We call all these things progress. Progress. We stepped away from that. And these kinds of things. So these things spill out. So they now are two, and there is a nakedness now. There is awareness of their vulnerability. And that will lead to what? What does their nakedness and their vulnerability lead to? What does it say? What does it lead to? Huh? Fear starts it. Not guilt. See, that's. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because that's completely wrong. And no. I'm not saying that to embarrass you. No, one of the, anyway. No, because it is. One of the most important things in science is what you learn from a failed experiment. Failure is an important part of learning, because it's one less thing you have to try. You don't have to do this again. Or you can find out some elements there in that failure that can help you improve on the next step. So no, his answer is what 99 and 44 100% of ivory soap users would say. Guilt. No, it's not guilt. It's what? No, what does it say? He says, pardon me? Shame. Shame. See? We were not ashamed. Now, very interesting word. See, we are, as this gentleman just almost reflexively spit out, guilt. We are a guilt culture. The West is overwhelmingly guilt. The Oriental is overwhelmingly shame. What is the difference between shame and guilt? What is the difference? Go ahead, I'm sorry. The idea of guilt has tended to become, or is, very personal or privatized. It has to do with me, my behavior, what I'm carrying. Why is shame different? Culture. I'm not saying. I want you to come. Yeah, no, and I want you to come smaller. I want you to come micro rather than macro. So you're in the land of Kraft macaroni and cheese. What I want you to do is take some angel hair pasta and come down.
Shame is what you feel sorry for, what you regret.
Why? Why do you feel sorry and regret?
You know it's wrong and you do it.
That's all psychological babble. Maybe. But in a shame society, in a shame culture, whom don't you want to disappoint and offend? Your family. Your family. If you went to Catholic school in the 50s, which obviously none of you have, okay, you know that you were never referred to by your first name. You were the maestry boy. Why? We don't really care about you individually. You spoke about what kind of parents you had. If you cut up and you were a problem and you were a nasty, bad person, it was always, what kind of parents must he have? Yes. That's a heck of a lot heavier than the fact that you feel guilty. Who cares that you feel guilty? It's not about that. Why did the Japanese in the kamikazes fly their planes into the boats and so on and so forth? Part of it was because they were losing. And whom did it affect? Not them. I feel bad because I didn't get the number of kills I should have gotten today. So, no. It's what it did to the emperor, the nation. And above all, I would have to go back to the village, to the place where I lived, and face it. And what shame it would cause my family. My family. Shame is that which it metastasizes out. And it's bigger than oneself. Guilt tends to be very personalized. Aren't you guilty for what you did? And the answer may be, no, I'm not. Okay, end of story. Shame, how do you face, what do we talk about? How do you face your parents? Now, Miss Betty, we can then go to you, fearmonger that you are. What is the result of what is the result of the shame that they are going to feel? What do they do? What do they do? They hide. Why do they hide? They're afraid. Hiding. When you're naked, what are you? You're vulnerable. When you're fearful and you're shamed, what do? You hide. What do they do right after? What does God do for them? He gives the fig leaves. They cover themselves. They cover themselves because they are vulnerable. They now have a knowledge that they wanted, that they got through their own disobedience and pride, that they're not able to handle. And God told them, anything you want, but you can't have this. That's what they wanted. And understand this, God doesn't prevent you from sinning. Otherwise, you don't have freedom. Oh God, protect me from this sin. That's one thing. If by that you mean give me the grace to cooperate. if you mean God, somehow magically sprinkle me with angel dust, and I'm not going to do this. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. As St. Augustine said, and I say many times, God builds the boat, but expects you to open the sails. You got people who want God to build the boat, open the sails, provide the wind, give them the GPS or whatever that stupid thing is, and all that, so that they can get to safe harbor. And all we have to do is sit in the back of the boat and drink our Dixie, although we don't have that anymore. Drink Dixie. Yeah, we got that thing that went out of business. Yeah, but it went out of business, didn't it? Yes, it did. It went under. Nobody wanted that. Anyway, and just, just kick back and do that. And, it's called the sin of presumption. Its opposite is the sin of despair. And you mark the middle road. What is that? It's hope. It's hope. See? So, you see the dynamic that's unfolding here. See? And all of these elements are at work in this tight little section here, explaining how did we get into this mess. You see the elements of fear, of shame, the development of sexuality, and the idea of learning the importance not of a technical knowledge, but of the wisdom of respecting limits and boundaries. Respecting that. Because without that, you corrupt your freedom and you pollute your reason. Because you take in more than you can digest, and it distorts the faculty of your choice by your desire for more and more and more. And so gluttony comes into play, and you are stuffing yourself with this that you haven't been able to process. It's too much. We say that, don't we? That's too much information. Too much information. Okay, at times there is too much information. Because right now, we can't handle it. But we say that all the time. I don't want to talk about this now. I can't deal with this now. What are you saying? I'm overloaded. I'm overwhelmed. God is saying the same thing. You're going to be overwhelmed with this. If you know good and evil, you have now become like God. I didn't say you're God. You're like God. But that knowledge, in and of itself, without a moral direction of your will choose very bad things. And that's the problem today. We live in an instrumental mindset, rationality, an instrumental rationality which says, tell me the most efficient means to achieve the end that I choose. But we never ask, is the end that you're choosing good for you? Does it enhance your humanity? Is it something you ought to choose? Simply because you can choose it. Ought you to choose it? People say all the time, I have a right to that. But is it the right thing to do? Yes, injustice. Injustice. Yes, you win. Scales are balanced. But is there anything higher than justice? Yes. It's called mercy. Because the Bible seldom talks about justice without mercy. St. Thomas Aquinas said justice without mercy is cruelty. Cruelty. Justice without mercy is cruelty. Cruel. You know? Okay. Cruelty. And that's a very important, because it tempers it. Doesn't Jesus do that? Doesn't Jesus do that? You have heard it said, what? What have they heard? When Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, chapter 5, 6, and 7, you have heard it said by your ancestors, what? What is this? No. Eye for an eye, thank God. Look, all of you that can navigate all of these stupid phones with all your little clicks and this kind of stupid stuff, okay? Here I am trying to be pantomiming. What is he talking about? I have no idea. Oh, God. Maybe he's having a fit. No, yes, I am having a fit. My Lord. I mean, my goodness. Oh. All right. So much for that experiment. You have an eye for an eye. Huh? Eye for an eye. But I say unto you, okay? But I say to you, huh? Very, very different. Jesus is talking then about mercy and forgiveness. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Oscar Wilde said, the only trouble with that is I want to know beforehand what they want done to them before I want to have it done unto me. Because you have some people who want things done to them that most of us in here would find somewhat questionable, to be polite about it. So, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yeah, but I want to know what you want done, because we have some strange people, who do this. All right. So, we have this. Now, they hide, and God, interestingly enough, God comes and God is looking for them. God's looking for them. And in verse 8, read that, John, please. Chapter 3, verse 8. 3. We're only in like 3 chapters. 1, 2, 3. We're not Romans now. Okay, so chapter 3, verse 8. Chapter 3,
When they heard the sound of the Lord, God walking about in the garden at the breezy time of the day, the man and his wife hid themselves from the Lord God among the trees of the garden.
Okay. Now, notice, God is walking in the breezy time. What might that stir in your recollection? Why? The wind. The wind. There's nothing formed. Again, we're only in 3 chapters, 1, 2, 3. Chapter 1 is, it's a formless void, and there is a wind that sweeps over its form. And from that, what then proceeds? Creation, order, separation, boundaries. All the boundaries. Why? Because you don't have a creation until then. You have a clump of stuff. That's not a creation. It's not a creation. You take a recipe and you put all the stuff, ingredients, and just put them out there on the table. You don't have a cake. You don't have a cake. You have a bunch of stuff. But when you mix them together in the proper proportion, amount, etc., then you have a cake. In the beginning, it's a clump of stuff. But with the Spirit blows, the boundaries are set. See, freedom always requires boundaries and limits. Otherwise, you don't have freedom. You have chaos. Because there's chaos. There's nothing there. Notice it says it's formless. It's formless. So many. One of the major complaints today is that all that was once solid melts into air. Now that's a complaint issued by, whether you like it or not, Karl Marx in the 19th century, with the rise of the industrial age. He writes, all that is solid melts into air, because he's lamenting the pastoral. He's lamenting the farm, the kind of craftsman and the guilds. And now you have this behemoth in front of him. He sees it developing, called the tremendous industrial revolution with machines and automation and all that's going to take place, and the dividing of society into the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. And then begins the exploitation of the worker, the means of production, in which we then go and know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And we have all of those things today, you see. And so he sees this taking shape, etc. Well, it's in front of him. In the book of Genesis, it's a formless void, but what's taking shape is the creation itself, but it requires boundaries. It requires order. There are limits. And so you have the dividing of the water from the dry land. You have those things. And you have we went through this progression of things upward till it finally reaches the creation of the human person. But above that is the angels, are the angels. And then God as the supreme at the top, the chain of being, and then under the earth. And then you have inanimate things, rocks and sand and all of that sort of stuff. Instruments. So you have this, and that seemingly little thing there is very, very rich in understanding. He's walking in the breezy time of the day, man and his wife, and they hid themselves because they are ashamed. They know they're naked. They're now vulnerable. They're not protected anymore. Their original innocence is now lost. Sin has opened their eyes to their own differences. And what it also does, why they are ashamed, is this. Their shame is also related to their inadequacies. Now, don't let that slide past you. To their inadequacies. Why do you think that's important? Why is that important? Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. They're not ready. And when you're inadequate, what do you tend to do? Pardon me? What do most people try to do, Lieutenant Colonel? Huh? You hide. Oh, wait, there's a man. Oh, I can't believe you didn't get this. You know, I turned sideways. Oh God. I can't be that thin. or skinny, as some people say. You ever notice that, though? Ever notice that? People have no problem saying, oh, you look so skinny. But if I run up to you and say, gee, you really look fat, oh, my God. I mean, there'd be a lawsuit there in about 5 seconds. You know? Look, we skinny people have feelings, too, you know. I mean, we take Prozac. Uh, so you have this, and these inadequacies. When we have inadequacies, we tend to hide. We tend to cover up. That's what we tend to do. We look for cover. Some people do it by becoming more aggressive. That's one way to do it. If you feel inadequate with something, you become more assertive and aggressive. But inside, that's fear-driven. It's inadequate. You see it in a more subtle way. A person who writes their name and puts all of the degrees, more degrees than a thermometer, after their name. Well, you don't have to do that. In the course of the conversation, the person can tell if you're intelligent, if you're learned, or something. You don't have to put the Campbell soup can after your name. But you see that all the time. This initial, that initial, etc. Or you go in the office, and they have all the documents nailed to the wall, up there. All of their testimonials and this and that, all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, you have some rectories where they have all this stuff up there, but they don't have a cross, crucifix, which is the only credential that we have that's worth displaying. All that other stuff, give me a break. Give me a break. That's God is not going to ask you, let me see your degrees. God's going to ask us, let me see how poor you are so I can fill you up. Take all that junk out of your bag that you drug up here with all your trophies and your acclamations and all of this kind of stuff. Because you see with that, there's no room for me in there. There's a reason Jesus was born in an empty crib and nailed to an empty cross. That's the only place there was room for him. Because we are told there was no room in the inn. So he had to be born where there was room for him. And we believe that somehow I have to go to God with all of my wonderful virtues and all the great things I've done and stand before God and say, look, what am I implying? Injustice, you owe me heaven. Get this Peter guy out of here because I'm going in. Because injustice, you owe me this. Now, we are shocked at that. Really? But ask yourself, do we not do the same thing at times? Oh, I did all of this. Look, didn't pay off. I did. I got to do this. I got to do that because I got to fill up my bag. So that when I stand before God and I go, ooh, man, that's really full. Wow. Gee, I wish there was room for me. You're the guy who has everything. The rich young man. He was rich on how good he was in obeying the law. And Jesus said, well, there needs to be room for one other thing. Sell all of this stuff that you have here. Give it away. Give this grace and virtue and all of these graces you've built up, and give them to the poor people who don't have any, or who really need them and are struggling. He went away sad. He had many possessions. We think a big car, big house. No. He also, because he told the Lord, I have done all of this. That's what, the Pharisee in the temple with the publican. What does he do? He stands there and says, oh, I thank God I'm not like the rest of these people, like that rotten publican in the back. I fast, I tithe, I do all of this. Who's he praying to? Himself. The most predominant word he uses in his prayer is I. It's the religious ego. That's what it is. The poor schmuck in the back. Oh, Lord, I'm a sinner, forgive me. And Jesus says he went away justified. The other one did not. How can that be? Because the guy knew he had nothing other than his sins. Well, guess what, gang? That's why Jesus came. That's Jesus' word, not mine. I'm not making it up. That's what Jesus said. Heaven rejoices over the one repentant sinner than over the 99 who have no need of repentance. Jesus goes after the one that's lost. Searches the floor for the lost coin. Welcomes the prodigal son. All this. See? It's a whole reversal. Okay. So, we have this here. And they're inadequate. They're inadequate. Some of you said it, but they're inadequate to what? They're inadequate to what? What are they inadequate to? What is the temptation? To be God. Yeah, no, good neither. What are they inadequate to?
Mercy.
They are the temptation is to be God, therefore they are inadequate to being God. St. Augustine says that. My Lord, come on. St. Augustine says that. Let man first learn to be man before man wants to be God. For when man learns to be man, he will not want to be God. And that's true. Everybody wants to be at the top. Oh, if only I were in the boardroom at the top. Okay, you get it. God, I can't believe I prayed for this thing. Oh, God, I can't believe all the relationships I destroyed in getting it. All the people I laid in the corridor out there, bloody and dead. Well, you got it now. You wanted it. You got it. I mean, that's as old as human beings, huh? Faustus makes the bargain with the devil. Look at the Twilight Zone. They got those episodes where they get all these wishes and all the things that they wanted, and they get them, and they find out, whoa, this ain't so good after all. You see? They're inadequate. Again, I want more than I can handle. I want more. I'm not satisfied with one helping. I got to have 4 or 5. And how much does our culture encourage that? Overwhelmingly. A commercial, capitalist market society that's based upon consumption constantly has to make you in advertisements inadequate and to feel dissatisfied. Every product that tells you to buy it is telling you that in some way you're inadequate. You have a need. You're too fat. Well, take these god-awful burning things, or these pills, or something that you take. It's incredible. But you're inadequate without them. Not that you want them, you need these. See, this, you take a want and you make it a need. That's what you do. You have graying hair. Okay, so if you're a man, what do? Well, you have to go get your Grecian Formula 4. I don't even know if they make that junk anymore. But you do that, and you put it on your hair, and so on and so forth. All of these, look at the products and ask yourself, are they not telling you that without this product, you are inadequate, you're incomplete, and you can't possibly be happy? You're living under an illusion if you think you're happy and satisfied. You're just too stupid to realize, but don't worry, I'm here just to let you know how miserable you are without me. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling, which is probably more than the product that you want to get. But don't worry, you can get a second one for half price. Just pay a separate shipping and handling, which is more than the whole stupid thing together. Huh? that you may or may not get at the right address. So it's a wonderful thing. It's wonderful to be part of that. But that's what it is. I mean, it is. It's the shopping channels. Every 2 minutes, sometimes 2.5, depending upon the product. It's a constant making you dissatisfied, making you uneasy and unhappy. You thought you were okay, but you just didn't know. You had to have your consciousness raised. And now that your consciousness is raised, oh my God, you got to get this product. Don't be left out. Don't be part of the group that doesn't have this, because your next door neighbor who you really can't stand and you're in competition with, if I see her come out with this, I am going to absolutely die. So I have to make sure I get it. You know, it's the modern version, keeping up with the Joneses. You look at the shopping channels. It's one must-have thing after another. 24 hours a day, the only day it's not on is Christmas. And then they catch up right at the stroke of midnight on December the 26th, midnight a.m., going into the a.m. next day, right up again. And again, it's predicated on the inadequacies and insecurity that we feel. Without it, we are naked and we have no fig leaves. This is all the way back to Genesis. It's just different techniques, different toys, different forbidden fruit paraded in front of us. The dynamic is the same. It's the same thing. Same thing over again. Koreleth in the Bible. Great book of Koreleth. There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new. It's repeated over and over. Harry Truman. There's nothing so new as the history you didn't know or forgot. We're living these stories. Oh, different times, different costumes, different trinkets. The dynamics are part of the human nature. You see? And so there is this inadequacy. And there's also inadequacy because their eyes are open, and what are they realizing? What are they realizing of their inadequacy when their eyes are open? Because they are not open. They're not open until there's man and woman. So what are they inadequate with? When there's man and woman, what do they become aware of? Their nakedness. They now are aware of their sexuality. What is their inadequacy?
I don't know what to do now.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
How do they react to each other or interact with each other?
How do they communicate? That means they're new.
Be very earthy, because the Bible has no problem with it here. They're different. But their difference means what? What does their difference mean? I told you together they are complementary. What is their difference now that their eyes are open? They can do different things. Their differences are differences which quickly will lead to what? Inferior, superior. I'm inadequate. I am inadequate by myself. That's the whole thing that got this thing started. As far as I know, you can't give yourself a baby. Okay? Sorry. I understand gender theory and all this kind of stuff. It's wonderful, terrific, great liberation. Just kidding, by the way, for those who are just drive-by viewers. The idea is that by yourself you are inadequate. Okay, well, what is the shame that comes in when I see the other? What is the shame? Okay. Ah, wonderful, Marie, wonderful. The power of the other. Sexuality should never be talked about without the recognition of the reality of power. And only a fool does not understand the power dynamics in sexuality. What are the two primal urges that the scriptures talked about, that we talked about? Food and sex. Food and sex. Can sex be weaponized?
Yes.
Of course it can. I'll punish you, no sex tonight. That happens. Sorry. Sleep on the couch. That happens. That happens. And one of them will say, how long are you going to punish me for this? That happens. That happens. Sex can be a display of nuptial love, and it can also be a manner of control, manipulation, of just use and pleasure, recreation, release. It can be all of those things. That's why it's so important to understand within the context. And that's why society has always, until very recently, by the way, has always done what with sex? What has always accompanied sex? Not simply Western society and so on. All societies, almost when they first fell out of the cave. What have societies done in relation to sex? Very good. Exclusivity, fidelity. It's even present in some animals. Some animals mate for life. Even the so-called lower animals, that sometimes I have a feeling we could learn from them, by the way. But anyway, yes, exclusivity. What else? Commitment. Yes. See, now, you say that word, that's a fear word. Because if commitment today means a foreclosure of freedom. Keep your options open. Don't burn your bridges. All of that kind of stuff. Let the airplane keep circling the airport. Keep shopping for the next best item coming along. I don't want to get tied down. All of those things. Okay? Fidelity, exclusivity, commitment, and it must be done in the proper context. The proper context. It's fashionable now today to say, for example, we're planning on getting married and yet they're cohabitating. Well, if somebody could, for God's sake, please explain to me, why are you wasting all of that money on a honeymoon? Why? Just call it a vacation. Call it something. The idea, because to engage in the nuptial act outside of the context of sacramental marriage is a lie in the language of love. Because what you are doing is committing an act that's not true. That's what you're doing. To engage in sex, I'm talking about conjugal acts, outside of marriage, is a lie in the language of love. Because that act intrinsically in itself bespeaks the commitment of this man and this woman as Christ and God is committed to his people and to the church, which is faithful, exclusive, long-suffering, life-giving, all of those things. And when I engage in this outside of the context of that commitment, that promise, etc., I am committing an act that is simply not true. The act itself, in and of itself. Now, I understand you can give me all of these things. I mean, I see it by your faces. But you can do this. You can give me all of these things about, well, you know, it's the culture, it's this, it's that. That's all fine and wonderful. Terrific. And I'm sure we can find diminished capacities and all of it. Fine. I'm talking about the act. I'm talking about the act itself. The material act that's done. Okay? And Jim here has a book, and I like the book because it's in nice white covering and all that kind of stuff and so on and so forth. And when Jim goes to the bathroom, I slip it into my case, and I say, I don't know what happened to it. And of course, Betty there, because she has this strict ethic, you know, of blabbing and squealing, okay, you know, and she says, I know who took it. Don't you love people like that do that? I love, you know, and I say, well, I'm not a thief. Say, well, wait a minute. You're not a thief. No. Does this belong to you? No. Did you take it? Yes. Did you put it in there? Yes. Did you have the intent of telling him when he asked where his book was that it's in your case there? No. But you're not a thief. No. We would say, no, the person's not a thief. The person is a lunatic. They have a mental problem. But the act that I engaged in is an act of thievery. That's an act of theft. Now again, we can get all kind of reasons why the person is not culpable. I'm not talking about that. You know, and it's not a courtroom. I'm talking about just what was done. And when we engage in this outside of its proper context, it's a wonderful word that we don't use anymore, fortunately. It's a wonderful word. You don't hear it anymore. The word is seemly and unseemly. We say, oh, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. Oh, spare me that. Unseemly means an act that is committed outside of its proper context. Example, very simple baby example. You receive an invitation to go to someone's house, and they say, formal attire required. Okay. It's on the invitation that you had, RSVP. And so you reply, yes, I'm coming. All right. And you show up in a beach outfit. That's unseemly. Why is it unseemly? It's not appropriate in the context of what is taking place. If it says come casual, and I come dressed to the irons with the tuxedo and everything, or a beautiful evening gown on a lady, by the way, and all of that kind of stuff. You got to say all of these things today. You see, you never had to say that. You never had to work so hard before. But anyway, so you have all that. And the person goes, Whoa, didn't you get the invitation? They may even say, did you see where it was casual? You're unseemly. And so, yes, when you walk in, you may garner the attention. And maybe you're so insecure that's what you want. You know, insecure. Even bad behavior is better than no attention. So I walk in like this and everybody goes. But I've become the center of attention. That's what I want. And that's what I'm getting. You say, but it's unseemly. It doesn't fit the context. And we always have to ask ourselves, what am I doing? And is it in the proper context of what the act is meant to be? What the act is meant to be. Now that the culture says, go to the materiality of the act. And again, if you review your 4 causes, you will know what is seemly and unseemly. The seemly and unseemly act. And there, that particular context there, they are inadequate in and of themselves. And this leads to what? Not to guilt over that, but shame over what? What are they ashamed? What are they ashamed of? Now that they are naked, they are now man and woman, and they see each other. Their eyes are open. What are they ashamed of in relation to what we have just been talking about? What are they ashamed of? What are they ashamed of? And what can't they do?
They don't know how to farm, get their own food.
No. In relation to what we're talking about, sex, huh? It's not a bad word. I mean, this is the thing what the Bible's talking about. Read the Bible. Go read the Psalm of Songs. Go read the Song of Songs. You think you want to talk about X-rated? Go read that. You'll just love it. Oh God, come on. What is the shame with? What do you mean they don't know what to do? What do you mean? But God has told them, be fruitful and multiply. Yes, but what then is the shame? What is the shame? What? Wonderful. Stop for a moment, please, and ask yourself, how many times on television in the 21st century are you bombarded with all these stupid things about your performance? So you act like, like this is new, right here. You have, everybody seems to have erectile what is it? Some kind of dysfunction. ED, erectile dysfunction, something or another. Yeah, well, now, we're not going to be hasty about this. You have to understand. Yeah, now, I mean, after all, we're advancing to the rear. And so, the idea of their inadequacies. They're inadequate by themselves. They're inadequate. And this causes the shame. And you have to take, you got the baseball player and this Flutie guy who used to be the quarterback at Boston College, Doug Flutie, and you got Frank Thomas, the baseball Hall of Famer, and they're pushing some kind of sex performance thing. And she'll like it too, and it's like these god-awful, these things like adult bookstores. Adult bookstores are so misnamed. They're adolescent bookstores. Adults don't go in there. They don't. Because this is nothing but people who are struggling with puberty and trying to figure it out that may go in there. Real mature adults do not go to adult bookstores. They have grown up. They have matured about what sex really is and what a gift it is and what it is for and what a blessing and a spiritual dimension of life it is. You don't see adults in adult bookstores. You see adolescents whose psychological, emotional, and other states have not caught up with their chronological age. That's what you see. But notice this performance thing. We have to make sure we perform, because sex has become another commodity to be sold, another thing that you can now get in a bottle, another thing you can buy, and she will love it. You'll feel like a man, because now your manhood is now encapsulated in this bottle. That's what it says. And maybe she's just been trying to make you feel good and tell you how wonderful you are and all of this kind of stuff. But is she really? Well, if you get this, there'll be no doubt. You know, you're ready. I mean, Casanova, push over, Don Juan, get out of the way. You know, so this will remove all doubt. This will remove all doubt. But ask yourself, this is another commodification of one of the deepest and most profound expressions of our humanity. It's now a commodity. It's now a product for sale. They run these ads now where you can now get the, I got to be careful because I messed these two things up. I do. What's the one for the hair? Makes your hair grow. Yeah. But no, you take the pill. What is it? Rogaine. Yeah, I always, because what? Yeah, but one time it's Rogaine, and the other time it's the Viagra. Yeah, one time I got it messed up, and needless to say, that didn't go well. Maybe that explains a lot. Anyway, I had a lot of, well, I won't go into that. Now you can get the little blue pill, or you can get this other thing that's kind of a thing that goes with it, or some other name. I forget the name of the thing. But now they show you that at the Walgreens and CVS, it's some whopping amount of money, $400 and something for 10 of the pills, whatever it is, because it's 40 something dollars a pill that they're charging you. But you can get the generic thing if you call in, and you can get 10 pills. One of each is 89 cents a pill. And they show you the receipt from the Walgreens and from the CVS. They show you a real receipt with the price at the bottom. You know, and this is now covered. Don't worry about it. It's covered by insurance and all of that, because we couldn't have you walking around in doubt about your performance. So that's covered, because that will cause you trauma. And so you have that. And then they show you the bill that, not to worry, for those of you that are prudish, it's sent to you in a plain white envelope so that no one knows that you're having problems performing, you know. So they're very sensitive to that, you know. It's sort of like the hypocrites who run casinos at the bottom. If you have a gambling problem, contact. By the way, we're betting, the odds are 10 to 1 that you're not going to call. Does anybody want to take this bet? Huh? Call right now. And if you lose, we won't count it. We'll do it the next time, you know. But by the way, call. Please call. Have we lost our mind here? I mean, we have. I mean, culturally, we are wacko. I'm telling you. So they have the shame because of their inadequacies. Their inadequacies at the most primal levels. Final little example. Let's go to the first primal, food. We have looked upon men as the quote-unquote breadwinner. Breadwinner. Then that mom took care of the domestic front, and men took care of the work out there. And he brought home the bacon. He was the provider. For many people, I'll tell you, my mother worked up until just I was ready to go to elementary school. She was a bookkeeper, and then she never worked again in a business, commercial area. She was a bookkeeper. My father worked until he was almost 90. And every week or 2 weeks, depending, my mother would get a house allowance from my father. Now, I know that shocks everybody. But you go back and ask some people if that house was not run that way. And when you wanted something, you had to go to daddy, or you had to go, unless your mother, now don't get me wrong, mother was a Rudy Madoff, Michael Madoff, before there was a Michael Madoff, because she always had cash shoved away, off the books, There's no question about that. Somehow she always had it. It was amazing. The most amazing thing in the world. You know, you talk about finding money in the cushion. Forget about that. She didn't have to find anything. She would go, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to bed. And all of a sudden, you'd hear this coins opening and everything else like this. What's going on in there? And when you wanted something, and your father would tell you, let me break the news to you. I'm not a bank. Okay. Then you'd go, and then you thought, wait, how did you get that? Where did you get that? Oh, I sold Coke bottles. I went and got bottles in the neighborhood. That's what I did. Your mother's there. Like this. Okay. But that's how it was done. Father worked, brought home the money, doled it out, etc., so on and so forth. That was accepted. That was accepted. It wasn't considered brutality. It wasn't considered... I understand today that will never happen. I get it. But ever since World War II, you have women entering the workforce in greater numbers. And what has become disvalued is the domestic front. I'm not talking about, please don't get wild, I'm not talking about women who have children, their husband dies, they have to work. I'm not talking about people who have to work in order to put their children through school. I'm not talking about women who are abandoned. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those who say, well, I don't feel fulfilled in the house raising the children. I have to go out. And I have to get all these other people to come in to raise my children. Okay? And we now have domesticated the father to where he's in the house now. And he refers to himself as a house mother, which is an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. It's beyond belief. But okay, you have that. Now, this idea of inadequacy. Many, many, many marriages have great deal. Two things marriage people argue about most of all. Money and sex. That's the thing, money and sex. Now, when dad, father, in the traditional role, I understand you don't like it, but that's okay, in the traditional role I'm talking about, was the breadwinner, the one who brought it home. That was a significant part of what it meant to be a man. You provided for your family. And one of the things you didn't want was your wife out working. You didn't want that. Again, I'm not asking you to pass a moral judgment and cultural values and all that. I'm trying to explain the dynamics at the time. And that's it. Well, more of this that begins to seep out to women, to others, etc. And the changing roles. There's a great deal of inadequacies that begin to develop there. Am I doing enough? Am I providing enough? And so you have many men now who, if they are working, they have no, for them, a 40-hour work week means a vacation. They're working 50, 60 or more hours a week. And they come home to a house full of strangers. Oh, they share the address. They share the structure. Their children grow up. But they're basically a house full of strangers. They may have to miss big key moments in the life of their children. They forget anniversaries. They don't have the social network they once had because they're too busy working. And mother now has found herself working over here and over there. And they're both exhausted when they get home. And so their children lack a significant adult voice that really loves them and cares for them. Oh, they're managed by coaches and tutors and life coaches and all this other kind of stuff. Or worse, they fall in with the peer group. They spend their time on video games in the mall. That becomes their role models and things like that. And we think somehow there's no collateral damage there. There's a great deal of damage there. Great deal. But these inadequacies that, and it often goes unspoken of. All, most human beings do not go around talking about their sex problems or their money problems. Most of us don't do that stuff. I don't know what people do now, but I know that most of us, there was a sense of propriety. There was a sense of whom you could talk to about what. And there was a kind of code of mutuality, of confidentiality, that has itself melted into air, where everyone thinks it's wonderful to, quote-unquote, come out the closet. Well, the only people in the closet now seem to be Christians. Those are the ones who have to apologize, keep quiet, go undercover, don't be too boisterous, don't get in the public square, don't talk about anything. But everybody else is out screaming about some of the most perverse things in the world. And they're hailed as heroes. They're hailed as heroes. Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is a Heisman Trophy winner, two-time national champion, football player, quarterback, University of Florida. And he's a very committed Christian man. Very committed Christian. Makes note that about when they have that tape here, the black tape there, in order to protect them when they're playing football from the glare and the sun that's coming in, because he was the quarterback. He had John 3:15 there, or 3:14, there. And at the end of a game, or before the game, he would kneel down on the sideline, and say a prayer. Say a prayer. Oh my God. It was incredible. The terrible backlash against this. How terrible this was. This was offensive. There might be somebody somewhere in Armpit, Kansas, who was an atheist, okay, who was offended because their signal happened to be in the right thing, and they saw this, and my God, they're still in recovery over seeing this person praying by themselves in the end zone. Oh, my Lord, God, stop it. And yet, we had to put up with 2 years of this nonsense, of people turning their back to the flag, refusing to stand or do anything for the national anthem, to not allow any of this kind of stuff. That was heroic. prophetic. Oh, it was terrific. It was wonderful. It tells you all you need to know. It tells you all you need to know. There was a wonderful interview a couple of days ago. And I'm going to move on, but it was a wonderful interview. The stupid reporter asked the Boston Celtic coach, basketball coach, after the game against Dallas, which Boston won. He said, "Are you aware that this is the first time that the NBA Finals have had two black coaches coaching the teams? This is an historic event." And the Boston Celtic coach, he said, "Oh, I was aware that this is the first time we had two professed Christians as basketball coaches in the final of the NBA game." There was 30 seconds of complete silence. I mean, it was so awkward, it was delicious. It was like there is a God. It was like the Epiphany on Mount Tabor with the Transfiguration. It was wonderful to watch. They didn't know what to do, what to say. It was a kind of a collective laryngitis. You know, I mean, I could see the Prozac going out all over the place. It was just, I'm talking about to the press. It was amazing. And that's what he said, and he just sat there and looked. Any more basketball questions? Thank you. Got up and walked off. Nowhere on YouTube, nowhere recorded, nowhere talked about on the national shows. That tells you all you need to know. That tells you all you need to know. And I'm talking about 2 or 3 days ago. I'm not talking about 40, 50 years ago. 2 or 3 days ago. And it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing to see. They wanted to, once again, get into this identity politics and divide and separate and make people hate each other and all these kind of stuff. And this coach wasn't taking the bait. In fact, what he did was he elevated it to their shame. He shamed them. That's what he did. And that's the most effective way. Not to give a long harangue and all this other kind of stuff. He simply turned it in a Holy Spirit moment and gave that guy just what he deserved. Just what he deserved. It was a beautiful moment. Beautiful moment. Okay, I'm almost. What time is it, Miss? Oh my God! Let me just give. I'm sorry. Let me just give you this real quick. Let me give you this real quick, please. I want to go down to verse. Let's see. I want to make sure you get it. Go down to verse 11. Try it there. Chapter 3, verse 11 of Genesis, please. Chapter 3, verse 11 of Genesis. We're only in 3 chapters. Okay? Then God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I had forbidden you to eat?" The man replied, "The woman whom you put here with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree, so I ate it." There is the classic scapegoating. But who is he blaming? No. Thank you. You put here with me. I was okay. I was fine, all lonely, with my lip over my shoulder, incomplete, but I was happy. I was okay. I was surviving. I was getting by. But no, you had to go meddle and give me this one that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask for this. You know, it's ultimately blaming God for this. Now that's not unusual. They had a whole bunch of people walking around in the 21st century who blame God and religion and everything for everything that's wrong with them. Everything that's wrong with the world. You see, when you read this, it's not anything. That's why this is a book, an eternal book, because it's about the human condition. And if we learn from it, we can avoid or minimize much of the wreckage. But if you hold this up as just some old book by a bunch of crazy people from millennia ago, then we stay in our darkness. We stay in our ignorance. That's all I'm saying. See? And the Lord then asked the woman, "What is this you have done?" "The snake tricked me, so I ate it." She blames the snake. This, again, is the classic example of scapegoating. And scapegoating is with us, especially when you want to find an enemy. And that's the cause of much contemporary violence. Get your enemy, name them, blame them. That's what the communists did and do. That's what the Nazis did and do, etc. You find the person who is the enemy, you attribute all kind of things to them, and you coalesce people's passions and their prejudices and their fears and their inadequacies and uncertainties. And now they have an object, they have a target. Otherwise, it's what? It's all nebulous. It's them. They did this. That group over there. Oh, okay. See, that's all up there. It's just an amorphous mass. But if I can start naming things. Oh, yeah, by the way, what is the first thing that God gives to Adam to do? Name the animals. Name the animals. So we name the enemy. But as Shakespeare said, Oh, Cassius. Yeah, trouble lies not in the stars, but in ourselves. You see, the enemy is often the enemy within. It's the self. It's the insecure, inadequate self. You see. And so, but if you can name it, if you can put a picture on it, if you can identify it, there's a target. And it becomes much easier to attack because you can name it. It's not them. It's not the other. It's not this. You get specific, and the attack becomes focused. If you're flying a mission to take something out, you don't say, "Go get the bridge." No. You have to know very specifically what you're talking about. There's a whole bunch of bridges. You want to know what's the altitude, longitude. You want to know how high, what's your ceiling, visibility, all of these kinds of things. What's the weather? Because that's what you do. The same thing is when you decide to scapegoat. You play on people's fear and their passions, their inadequacies, and you target them. And that's what every totalitarian hate group does. And you can't live without an enemy. If you're a hate group, you have to have an enemy. If you don't have one, you make one up. You make them up. Hitler had to have a hate group. He got the Jews. He got the criminals, the imbeciles, the mentally and physically deficient. You have to have a hate group if that's your bent. And just identify your enemy and go get them. And you play on people's fears. Because, you see, this is it. When you get a mob and you coalesce them into a group of attack, it's much easier for the individual to do that because you now have your fig leaf. What is the fig leaf? All these other folk. So I can throw one of those Molotov cocktails too. I can go bust that window. I can go turn over that car. I can beat up that guy when I got a mob with me because it lessens my responsibility, culpability. I can now hide behind the fig leaf of others. I don't want to make a decision. I have to bring it to the group. It was the board decision. Well, who's the last hand of authority on the board? Where is the last hand that makes this decision? Well, it was just a group decision. We hide behind these things. We melt into the crowd, so we're not guilty. It diffuses it. You know that? Some people, when they drink, whatever people drink, and what do? They say, cut it. Or give me water with something. You put something in it. And it cuts the, I guess, alcohol content or the effect or something. Anyway, you lessen it. So that's what you do. Get a whole bunch of people to go with you. And you're cutting it. You're lessening it. And hopefully you can get invisible. You can do dirty things, but do it invisibly. They're hiding, but they can't hide from God. They can't hide from God. See? And there's going to be consequences. All right. Your time in prison is over. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty and gracious God, we offer you glory, praise, and thanksgiving for your gift of this night and this time. Please come, Holy Spirit, come. With the fire of your love, cleanse our mind and purify our thoughts that they be of you, and not of self, world, or the evil one. Please strengthen our weak will, that in our weakness Please be our strength. And through your fiery love and presence, melt our cold marble and steel encased heart, that we may follow you. Be one with the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and return to our Heavenly Father, the love he shows us each day.